All right. And then after Benjamin, let's go to Cole.
My name is Cole. I'm going to sixth grade and I'm from Texas in the US.
All right. Thank you. Then we'll go to Harry.
My name is Harry. I'm going into seventh grade and I'm currently in Carmel, Indiana.
Right. And then Peter.
I'm in sixth grade going to seventh and I'm in California.
Right. And then I'm probably pronouncing this name wrong, but is it Zebo?
Yeah, you got it right. Okay. I'm in eighth grade and I live in Salt Lake City, Utah.
All right. Last but not least, we'll have Lucy go. Lucy, are you there? All right. We can skip you for now, and then we actually have someone that just came in, so I'm probably pronouncing it wrong again. Is it Sai or
Oh, wait, sorry. My screen was
Yeah.
frozen and then I couldn't unmute.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Go ahead.
My name is Lucy. I'm going to seventh grade and I'm in Austin.
And then, yeah, is it Sai or Ise? I'm probably saying it wrong, but just tell
My
us
name
about
is pronounced Shosha.
Shosha.
Yeah. What are we doing? Sorry, I came back. Came over a little late.
Yeah. We're just telling each other about our grade and where we're from.
I'm Shosha and I'm in fifth grade.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so in order to, do well in this camp, we first need to know each other and have fun, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna play scribble.io. Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the people that don't know, I'll explain right now. So basically, in scribble.io, everyone will take turns drawing something, and then the person and the people that aren't drawing will have to guess what that drawing is. And then whoever guesses first will get the most points. So let me create a lobby and then I'll actually join you guys too. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna copy the link and then you guys feel free to join. Who is scribble.io?
I'm scribble.io. I didn't choose the name.
That's okay. Now we know.
No one can choose the name.
All right, and we're missing 2 more people. Oops, someone left. Okay, I'm gonna start in 2 minutes. right, one more. One more person needs to join. Okay, I'm gonna start. Am I waiting on anyone?
Yes.
Right.
Can you rejoin it?
Sorry?
Can I rejoin it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my god.
Andrew, are we waiting on you?
Yeah.
Do you know how to join? How about this? Andrew, let's be on the same team together.
Okay.
All right. I'll screen share, but everyone else that's playing, you guys can't look at it, okay? That'll be cheating. Because then you'll know the answer. All right, let's go. Wait, I actually got it. And the number of letters is on the top, so just as a clue. All right. Oh, damn. That's actually a good drawing, Fred. Oh, a lot of people left.
Yeah, it said that I kicked.
Hmm. Wait. What is it? Oh. Wow, that's a good clue. Yeah. Ooh, my turn to draw. Okay, you guys can't look. Which one should I choose, Andrew? Okay. This one's hard. Someone looked. I feel like someone looked. I haven't even drawn. Oh, this is a good drawing. It's good, right? It's the person who created this. All right. I feel like one of you guys looked. All right, round two. What is this? Your brain. Oh, microscope. Wait, did I not spell it right? Oh, I forgot an E. That's so sad. Oh, wait. The logo is actually really good. The logo is good. The logo is good. Maybe. Andrew, help me out. Oh, dude, you guys are good. Oh, that's a nice drawing. McDonald's. No. Wow, you're right. Hmm. My turn. All right, Andrew, which one should I do? Ooh, okay. This one, watch. Man, I'm crazy. So good. Watch out how many letters there are. All right. And we have a winner. Yay. All right, that was fun. But now we're getting to the more serious stuff and we'll actually learn about debate. So let me just share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen? Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So, introduction to public forum. First, you have to understand that public forum is a debate where two teams of two go against each other. And usually they're going to be talking about and discussing a resolution. So a resolution is just a big word for a topic of what they'll be discussing about. So for example, one of the topics that I have debated on is the following. The United States should replace means tested welfare programs with a universal basic income. So this might sound complicated, but it's just saying that we should replace one program with another program. And these two sides try to debate whether you do it or you don't do it, which brings up to the different sides. So the side that says that, okay, this topic that we're discussing right now should be passed is called the affirmative side. So for the last topic, am I breaking up? Maybe.
Maybe
Okay.
turn on like live captioning, so even if you're breaking up, they can see
Live
the caption.
caption. How do I do that? Enable annotation. No. How do I do that? I'm not sure how to do that. But I'll talk slowly if that helps. Okay. And yeah, feel free to type in the chat. All right. If you guys have any questions or just mute. So what I was saying is in debate, there are two sides and each side has two people and they're usually debating on a certain topic. So let's say the topic, I'm just making this up. Bananas should not be eaten anymore. And they will be two different sides. So the first side is called affirmative side. So right here, affirmative. That means to be good, right? To go. So the affirmative side is trying to argue, yes, bananas shouldn't be eaten anymore because they're agreeing with the topic. The other side is the negative side. So they try to negate or disagree with the topic. So in this case, the negative side would say, okay, but bananas should still be eaten. So those are the two different sides. All right. Okay, and now that we've gone through the most basic part about debate, we will go into detail of the different speeches during a whole debate. So if you guys want to pull up a notebook or something, or just keep in mind this format, because this will be really important. And I'll also link these slides to email or something so that I can send it to you guys. Okay. All right. So first thing that comes up is the constructive speech. Now, you don't have to worry that much about it for now. We'll dive in more tomorrow. But a constructive speech is basically just a speech where you talk about your arguments first. And both teams have that chance to do that. So first, team A, which is usually the affirmative side, goes first. For 4 minutes, they will talk 4 minutes straight, and they will basically just be talking about why they agree with the topic. So I could be saying, well, bananas shouldn't be eaten because I don't like the color yellow, and they are mushy and they are disgusting. So that's what team A could be talking about. I know, Andrew, I know. I'm making that exact same expression. Okay, now the second constructive speech is where the other team gets to talk about their arguments. So in this case, let's say the other team says, well, bananas give you nutrition. They're also a good breakfast or something like that. So they get their chance to talk about why they disagree with the topic. So that those are the two constructive speeches, and they're both 4 minutes. And then after that, there's a crossfire. So a crossfire, it sounds scary, but it's basically just a time where both people get to ask questions for each other. So as you can see, it says Team A first speaker, which is the person that read the constructive speech from both sides. They get a chance for themselves. Yes, go ahead. I see a hand.
Could you interrupt another person during crossfire?
Yes, you can. So a crossfire is when both people talk at the same time and there's no restrictions. So it's 3 minutes, and basically it can get very chaotic. It's very competitive. So a lot of people talk over each other, but that is not always the best. And basically the format is one person asks a question, the other person answers, and whoever answers gets to ask the next question. And these questions can be strategically come up with. So they could if you see like a hole in the argument, then you can ask them about that hole. And then they might be, just standing there and thinking about what to do. And then to the judge, you might seem like the better team and you might win. So just some strategy, a lot of strategy in the crossfire section, right? So that's the first crossfire. Then comes the rebuttal speech. And as you can see, it's the second speaker, because remember, in a debate, there's two people on each team. So the second person talks. And a rebuttal speech is just a fancy way of saying how I disagree with your arguments. Okay. So in a rebuttal speech, usually what the second person does is everyone takes notes about what the opponent talks about and what they're talking about, okay? And then the second speaker goes up the stage and looks at what their opponents talked about and goes up and says that they're wrong, okay? So not necessarily like talking about your own arguments. You are trying to, in a rebuttal speech, disagree with their arguments. So there's a big difference there, right? So each team's second speaker gets to do that for 4 minutes each. And then there's a second crossfire between those two people. Okay, am I talking too fast? Does anyone need clarifications? All right, I'll move on. Okay, so after the crossfire, the first speakers from each team comes back up and they talk about what is called a summary. So during a summary, you can do a lot of things, but traditionally, in a summary speech, you will disagree with your opponent's rebuttal. And I know that's very complicated and gets chaotic, but you try to reinforce your own arguments and try to tell the judge why you should win this debate. And we'll get into specifics on how to do that later, but this is just an introduction on the format. So that's what you do in the summary. And then each first speaker from both teams get 2 minutes each. And I think this has changed to 3, but in this debate camp, we'll just do 2 minutes. And then there's what is called a grand crossfire. And this sounds scary, but it's where all 4 people get to ask each other questions and talk without any restriction. So this is usually the most chaotic part about a debate because it gets really, really intense. So that's the grand crossfire. And after that, we have the final focus from both teams. And their second speakers will end with a final focus. So in a final focus, you basically summarize everything up. You make it very clear to the judges why you should win. And you should make it clear to the judges as well why they shouldn't win. So those 2 things are important: why you should win and why they shouldn't win. So in a final focus, you summarize everything up and then you close the debate. Then after that, shake hands with your opponent, no hard feelings, and then the judge announces the winner. So that's basically the format of a debate. Okay, and then now we'll go into more specifics. So in a constructive speech, usually there are 3 arguments. So for the banana one, as I said before, like the first one could be it's mushy. The second one could be I don't like yellow, the color yellow. And then third, monkeys eat bananas and I don't like monkeys, therefore no bananas. All right, those 3 could be my arguments. And these arguments have to be backed up by evidence and reasoning, which is called a CER. I don't know if you guys have done writing or anything, but a CER is basically a claim for the C, evidence for the E, and then R for reasoning. So each argument would be backed up by an evidence and a reasoning. And I'm just going over this for now, but don't be worried. We will go over constructives and rebuttals tomorrow in more detail. That's a constructive. And then, yeah. Then we have the rebuttal. And usually in the rebuttal, you go over all of their arguments and then you say why that's not true. So the first argument was that bananas are mushy. So let's say in your rebuttal, you can be like, no, actually, bananas are not mushy. Bananas are actually very firm and they're only mushy when they're almost expired. So you can say that that's not true. So in rebuttals, you basically want to talk about how their arguments what doesn't make sense or is wrong. That's a rebuttal. In the summary, let's go back to the other side. The summary is trying to back up your own arguments. So let's say after those 2 sequences, so in the constructive, I say that bananas are mushy. And my opponents tell me that no, they're actually not mushy. They're only mushy when they're expired. And then in the summary, I have to reinforce my argument. So I have to say, no, that's not true. Even though bananas are mushy when they're expired, they're still mushy when they are coming out of the market because of blah, blah, blah reason. So I'm reinforcing my own claims. And the final focus is where you summarize the entire debate. And you tell your opponent or you tell your judge why your arguments matter. So you could be like, oh, bananas are a very important part of our society. You know, a lot of people eat bananas every day and it's super harmful for them because it's very, very mushy. And every day people wake up and then they see a mushy banana and they will be upset. So just telling the telling the judge why this topic matters and why they should vote for you. So you should be like, oh, you should vote for me because, we actually care about your health. We're not letting you eat mushy bananas, and they are letting you eat expired mushy bananas. So we should win this round. So, yeah, go ahead. See your hand.
What's the difference between a summary and a final focus?
That's a really good question. We will get into that later, but the most important part is weighing. And that might sound like a very complicated word, but weighing just means talking about why your argument matters more than the other person's argument. So usually when you reach a final focus, you could just be stuck in this loop where they say you're wrong, but you say they're wrong. And then no one knows who's really right, right? But the way that you can win your argument is to tell the judge that your argument matters more. So let's say, I'm not going to use the banana example anymore. Let's say my argument talks about how we save lives, and their argument talks about how we raise money. And you could be like, in Final Focus, your argument matters more because saving lives is something that is more important. Lives are irreversible. If you're dead, you can't bring someone back, but you can always earn more money even when you're poor. So in that way, your argument about how you save lives is more important than their argument about raising money. So the most important part in a final focus is to do that weighing, do that comparison between the two arguments. And in the summary, you're just trying to reinforce your arguments and then repeat to the judges kind of what's going on in the round. So that could be the biggest difference between the two speeches. And yeah, for everyone here, the recording will be posted later tonight. So if you want to go over some things, or if I'm talking too fast, then you can rewatch it. All right, and then yeah, Grand Crossfire. I've kind of went over basically what they are and everything. So, and then one last thing about debates is that each team gets 2 minutes of prep time. So prep time is basically a time where you can prepare for your speeches. So let's say after a crossfire, you are supposed to start a rebuttal. You can take 1 minute prep and prepare for that rebuttal. Then you'll have 1 minute left, and you and your partner share the same amount of time. So if you have 2 minutes and your partner uses up 1, your whole team only has 1 more minute. So that's basically how prep time works. All right, I've talked a while, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then after that, we'll look at a real life example of a debate. So 5 minutes, be back, okay? Is everyone back from our break? Hopefully. Still waiting on a couple people. Also, Isabella, is that V from BTS in your profile picture? Am I wrong? No, no. Who is it? Wait, let me guess. Is it from? Actually, I have no clue. Who is he? Where is he from? Oh, 17. Okay, I have no clue about 17. But it's cool. I like your profile picture. All right, I'm gonna assume that everyone is back and I'll get started. So now we'll basically look at a real life example of what a debate looks like. So let me just see. Okay, and you can see it's 43 minutes, pretty long time. So, you know, when you get into debate, you need your water, you need your pencil, and you need everything. Be ready. All right. And then I'm gonna share my sound. And let me know if you guys hear anything.
Well, I'm not sharing this.
Judges ready?
You guys did you guys hear that?
Yeah, I heard
Okay.
that.
All right. Okay. If you guys want, you guys can bring a notebook. Bring out a notebook, start taking notes of what they're saying, and then you can kind of see how they conclude. And after each speech, we'll kind of go over what went well, what went wrong. And then, yeah, we'll be basically watching it. So let me do this. All right.
Judges ready?
Actually, the quality is pretty bad. Let me see if I can fix it.
Judges ready?
Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
All right, then I will begin. Resolved, the United States should replace means-tested welfare with a universal basic income. We would like to offer the following definitions. Means-tested welfare programs are designed to aid those who are unable to pay for their basic necessities. Even if you have a high income level but cannot pay for more costly expenses without the programs, you are eligible. Second, based on the majority of proposals for a universal basic income, or UBI, it is estimated that every U.S. citizen over the age of 18 will receive $1,000 per month because this is the most proposed system. We contend that this is what UBI should be referring to in this debate. With this, my partner and I oppose the resolution for 3 main reasons. Point 1, disabilities. In the status quo, the United States has a variety of means-tested welfare programs in place to support those in need. For many individuals living with a disability, Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, is a gateway to qualifying for life-saving programs like Medicaid. The disabilities covered range from cerebral palsy to Down syndrome to autism and often require costly therapies and treatments to address developmental delays, mental health counseling, and services such as nursing care to live safely at home. KFF in 2014 and in 2019 reported that 11 million people with disabilities, including 6 million children, depend on Medicaid to provide for their expensive but necessary treatments. The 2019 article goes on to state that the average benefit from Medicaid is worth more than $17,000. A UBI of $12,000 a year would not cover the cost of living for 11 million people. Not only this, but MLR in 2018 stated that 84% of recipients benefit from other means-tested welfare programs. Not only would UBI not compensate for the $17,000 in benefits from Medicaid and the additional funds from other programs, but many treatments are not covered at all or are in very limited amounts by private insurance. Here's the impact. The end of means-tested welfare programs would mean the end of affordable, beneficial health insurance for 11 million people. The majority of individuals living with a disability require treatments that are out of budget, and private insurance often won't cover it due to the cost. Point 2, early child.
All right. Did you guys catch that first argument that she was making? Does anyone want to unmute or tell me what it is? Or you can type in the chat. All right, I see a hand. Go ahead.
I think she was talking about how you should replace a program for another program. And I know she talked about the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, and how it will not cover the whole cost. And then she said something about like the impact. It won't like cover everyone's educations, and then that will be bad for the economy and for people overall.
Yeah, you basically got it. So she was talking about how, so there's two programs. The first program is Universal Basic Income. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically a system that Andrew Yang ran on in 2020. He was saying how he's going to give everyone $1,000 a month. So that's the Universal Basic Income, universal meaning everyone. And the other one is means tested welfare, which basically means if you're poor or if you can't afford for for basic needs, the government will provide you money for that. So those are the two programs. And she said we will negate, which means she is on the which side?
Opposing the UBI.
Yeah, she's negating. So basically, her whole argument is there are a lot of disabled people right now that are using means tested welfare. And if you replace that with the UBI, the money that the UBI provides will not be enough for their treatment. And she also talks about how the impact of it will be 9 million people. And these statistics will be really important because as you will see, she'll be using this to compare with her opponent's arguments. So one important thing to catch is that she's calling her arguments contentions. So contention 1 or point 1, point 2. It's very clear to the judges that it's one whole argument. And where it starts, where it ends is also clear. And one more thing is she starts off saying what she wants to say and what she argues for. And then she says, let's say Washington Post 2014 says. So that's basically how you frame an evidence. So we'll get into that tomorrow, but just something that you can catch and kind of see. All right, we'll continue.
Childhood development. Early childhood development, as explained by the First 5 Years Fund in 2018, is not a luxury for American families. It's a necessity. This is why the United States fund programs for childcare that benefit 2.4 million children, as reported by CLASP in 2016 and the Office of Head Start in 2016. Childcare programs have helped to break the cycle of poverty through quality early childhood programs that support children's development, while allowing parents to enter or return to the workforce. Evidence from the National Institute for Early Education Research in 2016 and FFYF in 2018 find that, on average, a child on Head Start receives more than $11,000 in annual benefits. Seeing as 90% of children on child care programs are additionally on CHIP or Medicaid, UBI would not be enough to make up for the lost benefits that these families need. Here's the impact. Child care programs are critical for 2.4 million children. Replacing the programs with a UBI would not allow families to pay for child care along with the rest of their basic necessities. Under the current welfare program, they can. Point 3, immigrant citizen children. There are millions of children who are United States citizens that, with the implementation of a UBI, will lose access to life-saving programs like SNAP, NSLP, and Medicaid. This is because there are 7.2 million citizen children who live with non-citizen parents, according to statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau in 2017. Not only this, but Camerota in 2018 shows that 80% of non-citizen headed households with citizen children receive a form of means-tested welfare, mainly on behalf of their children, who legally qualify for the programs and deserve the benefits. Here's the impact. A UBI would mean cutting benefits for nearly 5.5 million children who would not receive any benefits from UBI. This will lead to a decreased quality of life for millions of children by depriving them of their basic necessities. For these reasons, we urge a con ballot in today's debate. Thank you.
All right, and did you guys catch how she ended her speech? She said, thank you everyone for listening, or something like that, to thank the judges. And she also said, for those reasons above, we strongly negate and hope that you have our ballot, or something like that, right? So she says something that closes off her speech. So that was the first speech. And then the second person from the pro side will go. So let's see.
Is my partner ready?
Yes.
And my opponent's ready.
And before their speeches, they would usually ask like, oh, is everyone ready? And then when they're ready, then he starts a timer for 4 minutes and then he talks. Because that way, it ensures that everyone is listening, even their opponents, even their judge, even his partner. So.
And all my judges ready. All right, let's begin. Resolved, the United States should replace means-tested welfare programs with universal basic income. Universal basic income is a government guarantee that each citizen receives a minimum income. If it were implemented today, based on current proposals, the most likely form would be $1,000 in cash each month for all U.S. citizens above 18, and possibly an additional $250 to $500 a month for every child.
All right. What he just did there was really important because he's clarifying how much money will be provided by the UBI. And this is important because if he doesn't do that, the judges will kind of never know how much money is provided by the UBI, right? And this is also a very strong little thing that he's doing, because if the opponents never talk about this, then that will just be the set money that they can use for the entire debate. So he said $1,000 and maybe an extra 2,500, right? So what he did there was just clarifying what basically what the UBI can offer. And let's see, aka modeling. Yeah, sure. So there's also, I'm not sure if he mentions this, but this reminded me of something that I haven't gone over, which is called the framework. So that might sound a bit hard, but framework is basically something that sets up the debate, and it's to tell the judges and the opponents why this debate matters and what matters most. So the most common framework is called utilitarianism. And that's basically a big word for if one side can benefit the most people, that side should win the debate. So if I go up the stage and I say, today our framework should be utilitarianism, then immediately my opponents and my judge knows that as long as I can prove that my side will benefit the most people, then my side wins. So a framework is usually pretty important in a debate, and it sets up how debates are going to go. Yeah, I see a hand. Go ahead.
Utilitarian is like something about the end result of something, right?
I'm not sure of the other definitions of it, but I know that in debate, utilitarianism means whoever benefits the most people is the best, is basically what it means. So yeah, and usually the other team can refute a framework. So they can say, my opponents mentioned that the framework should be utilitarianism, but I disagree. The framework should be about environmental damage. So they can be arguing about two different things, and it's up to the each team to tell the judge why their framework matters more. So yes, kind of like a trolley problem. Yeah. All right. I'm going.
With this said, my partner and I affirm the resolution, beginning with point 1, welfare is broken. The current means-tested welfare system creates dependency, disincentivizes work, penalizes marriage, and doesn't give the benefits to millions of people in poverty that even qualify to receive them. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation 2020, Medicaid, the means-tested welfare program for healthcare, leaves out 4.8 million people who qualify. Under housing assistance, more people are left out. Flowers 2016 reported 3 in 4 renting families that qualify for government housing programs don't receive any assistance, which Fisher 2017 found leaves 15 million families without the help they need. In another program called Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF, Floyd 2019 stated only a little more than half of the spending actually goes to core poverty programs, which takes away spending from families that need it and sends it elsewhere. Means-tested welfare also punishes people who try to get out of poverty. Dorfman 2016 explains that for every dollar of additional income a person makes close to the poverty line, welfare reduces 50 cents worth of its benefits. This reduces the incentive to work, according to the Congressional Budget Office 2015. In addition to that, a study from the American Enterprise Institute 16 finds that 82% of lower middle class families with young children face marriage penalties in the current system, meaning their benefits get drastically cut if they get married. Sheffield 2016 explains that penalizing marriage ends up penalizing the children. Statistics show that compared to their peers from single-parent families, children from married families are 80% less likely to be poor. Sadly, Sheffield also points out that couples with young children are less likely to marry if they face a significant marriage penalty. A universal basic income would eliminate all of these problems because it is given to everyone. No exclusions, no waste, and no penalties for earning more income. Which leads us to our second point, the benefits of universal basic income.
All right. Did you guys catch what the argument was? So there were a lot. Okay, I kind of forgot how to pronounce your name, but Shao something.
My name is Shosha.
Shosha, that's right. Sorry.
So I think his argument was about how like the other system it isn't definite and like some families don't get it, but the UBI it's given to everyone and like you're less like. And he also cited something about the other system being affected easily, and how like for example with marriage and children are less likely to be poor with single parent families.
All right. And Cole, do you have anything to add?
So they said something about the something meat tested fair thing that that a lot of the benefits will be lost if people get married, but that won't happen with UBI or something like that.
All right. Yeah, that's a good catch. Yeah. So basically, his entire first argument is just to say that the means tested welfare system is bad. It's just broken. And he makes three different points about that, right? One of them is marriage. He's saying that people who get married can't get the most benefits out of the means tested welfare program. And that's bad because usually in families where the parents aren't married, it usually is bad for those kids. And he also talks about how when you approach the poverty line, so let's say you don't have a lot of money right now, and you try to get a job and you earn more and more money. And as you try to get out of poverty, you kind of lose all of those benefits that you already have. So why would you bother leaving poverty if you have so many different benefits here with the welfare system? Is basically what he's saying. So it's basically a flawed system, right? So do they only have 2 minutes? That's a good question. Basically what the debate is about is they get to kind of predict what their opponents are going to talk about in a sense. So in a debate, you get to prepare a constructive speech. That's basically the most prepared thing in the world. So you usually, going into a debate tournament, you prepare 2 different cases, one for the pro side, one for the con side, or one for the affirmative side and the negative side. So those 2 are the different sides. And let's say you do a coin flip during a debate and you get the pro side, then you can read off of your affirmative case, basically, if that makes sense. So not necessarily is it that you have to prepare during a debate because you already have that speech available for you. So that's the affirmative and the negative cases. But for the rebuttal, summary, and final focuses, those you cannot really prepare because you don't know what your opponents are going to talk about, right? But you do know what you will argue for if you know your side. So yeah, something that I didn't clarify. So good question. All right, let's keep going.
UBI fixes the problems of welfare, provides financial security, prepares for future changes in employment, and helps people stay out of poverty. Subpoint
Okay,
A.
and I don't know if you guys can hear this, but my Discord is going off crazy, so I'm just gonna mute that.
Is financial security. Right now, 59% of Americans, or 152 million people, are constantly worried about money, according to H&R Block 19, which a Princeton 2013 study found significantly reduces cognitive capabilities. But as Stanton's 2017 shows, no other policy has the potential of reducing as much stress in society as a universal basic income, which is backed up by every single UBI study and program. In Finland, Ministry of Social Affairs 19 found a statistical significant improvement in financial well-being. Alaska, which has statewide UBI, was ranked first by Gallup 2015 in financial well-being. But most importantly, in North Carolina, Stanton's 2017 showed behavioral problems declined 40%, crime rates decreased, high school graduation rates increased, grades improved, home environments were transformed, and drug and alcohol use declined. Subpoint B is automation. New technology is changing the work environment and will affect tasks in virtually every occupation. Brookings Institute 19 finds 36 million Americans hold jobs with high exposure to automation, meaning at least 70% of their tasks can be automated in the coming decades. UBI fixes this problem by providing enough money for re-education and retraining. Subpoint C is exiting poverty. UBI provides a mechanism to lift people out of poverty. Based on U.S. Census Bureau statistics in 2019, over 10.6 million people, including 1.5 million children, would be lifted above the poverty line instantly without needing a job. And if just a single adult in the household works a full-time minimum wage job, that number skyrockets to 33.6 million people. And this is not unreasonable to expect, as most people have jobs under the poverty line. Please vote pro.
All right. And his last argument was what? Did any of you guys catch that? That was a lot for a second argument, but anyone catch what he was trying to say? Lifts people out of poverty. Okay. Yeah, so you kind of talked about how, with a UBI, even just $1,000 a month, they get to lift like 10 point something million people out of poverty. And if that one person, that one parent has a minimum wage job, then that number becomes 33.6 million people out of poverty. So pretty strong statistics. Yeah, Shasha?
I think he also mentioned, I'm not sure if this was part of the last argument or not, but he also mentioned something about like there's more education levels and like people consume less drugs and alcohol and the economy and the system overall functions better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Isabella actually, yeah, you guys talked about the same thing. Yeah, so he basically talked about how, that $1,000 can be used in decreasing drug use. And because of that, more people will be getting better education, right? And one last point that he also talked about was AI. So he's saying, in the incoming years, there's going to be AI, and AI will be replacing our jobs. So that is a pretty scary thing, right? But UBI can solve that because with that $1,000 per month, they can get education. And let's say AI is replacing those easy jobs like being a waitress or being a front desk person. Like those jobs will be replaced, right? So where are the people that used to have those jobs going to do? So those people can use that money from the UBI to get an education for a higher skilled job. So let's say something that can't be replaced, like being a writer or being a software engineer or a doctor, whatever you want. But those people can use that money and try to better themselves for a better job. So very strong argument. All right, now we're gonna see a pretty chaotic crossfire. I don't remember if it's chaotic or not, but usually crossfires are pretty chaotic. So let's see how they do. So as you can see, the first two people that spoke will start crossfire. And also something I forgot to mention, in debates, everyone is dressed up in suits and very formal outfits. So I don't know. I mean, on Sunday, you guys will have a mini tournament. You guys can dress up if you want, but it's no requirement. So.
All right, so can I have the first question?
Yep.
So you mentioned that 88% of people would be getting out of poverty if they were working. So how many people under the poverty line have jobs?
I believe it's over 90%. My partner, you can ask for the evidence if you want.
All right.
May I have a question?
All right. Just like that. He answered one question in 2 seconds. So that was pretty good on the affirmative side because he said, I'm not sure my partner will give you the evidence because he's not sure, of course, of the exact number for it. But just like that, he kind of takes control of the crossfire and he gets a chance to ask a question now. So yes, that's the end.
Does his partner get to like research during the time that they're crossovering?
No, they don't. They don't get to use Google at all during this debate. So going into a debate, you usually have a lot of evidence and you usually researched a lot beforehand. So the person asks, oh, like, what is the statistic of like the people under the poverty that have jobs or something like that, which they talked about in their constructive speech. But the person, this affirmative speaker one, doesn't have his case or his constructive speech on him right now. So he just says, oh, my partner will look for it after and give you the statistics, right? So in no, Isabella, you will not get eliminated if you show up in a t-shirt and jeans. You will not. I give you that promise. All right, let's keep going.
Question. Okay, so how many means-tested welfare programs are there actually?
There are around 80.
And are there still people living in poverty right now?
Yes, but in 2017 alone, 50% of those who were in poverty got out.
Okay, that was a pretty good, pretty well played by both sides. So this person said, how many welfare systems are there? And it might seem like a weird question to ask, right? Like, why would I care? And she says 80. And he says, well, then how many people are in poverty right now? And that's actually a trap. So if you just answer it, you'll be in a very bad position. Why? Because, well, let's say you say, I don't know, 1.8 million or something like that. Let's say 18 million people are in poverty. So then he can go, well, if there's so many welfare programs, then why are there so many people in poverty, right? That's like a perfect trap. And you get just trapped there and you don't know what to say. But the negative person actually does a good job of it. She doesn't say how many people are in poverty. She says the progress that has been made. So she says, yeah, that's a good question. In 2017, so many people got out of poverty. So instead of saying how many people are in poverty, she says, well, actually, means tested welfare helped these many people get out of poverty. So she does a good job of dodging that trap, if that makes sense. So well done by both sides, I think.
So then, like, what's the poverty rate now? Did it go down 50%? Or did more people just fall into poverty?
Well, more people are still going into poverty, but we're also getting a lot out. Can I have a question?
Yep.
So you state that the welfare system penalizes marriage, but what's the difference between parents that are cohabitating and parents that are actually legally married?
I mean, our sources basically show that parents that are actually married and they have a reason to stay together because of their children are 80% less likely to be poor. I'm not sure about cohabitating versus marriage. There's not really
It's
any
just the
studies
legal
about that.
definition, so
May I
they'd
have a
still be
question?
getting the benefits. Yes.
Okay, so
yeah,
against
a little
your
bit
first
chaotic.
point, you talked about SSI and Medicare. Aren't SSI and Medicare both going to be staying with UBI?
No, because SSI is different than the other. Supplemental security income is means tested. Social security is not. They're very different. And also we talk about Medicaid rather than Medicare. So both of these are still means tested and they would both be going away. So for the trials that you mentioned, the examples of UBI, was there not also welfare in place?
In some of them there were, and some of them I'm not, like.
So which ones were there not?
I'm not exactly sure. I know that in Finland they have a different system, but it's very comparable, like economically wise.
All right. Did you guys catch her question? It was actually a really good question. She says, remember he kind of talked about the trials in Finland where it's like, oh, like UBI can like help lift so many people out of poverty, right? So that was like a trial. That was an evidence. She goes and says, weren't there means tested welfare in Finland during that trial? So basically what she's saying is, well, yeah, there's going to be benefits, but it's not just because of the UBI. It might be because of means tested too. So he says, well, yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's comparable to the situation that can happen. So that was a pretty good question, and he didn't really have a good answer to that. So.
But we can also continuously bring up examples from Canada and other countries where all of these things were benefited.
But there was welfare in place.
They don't have it. Okay. So your second point, you talked about this early childhood and how this costs like $11,000. Why is it costing $11,000? Where's all this money going?
We're saying that the average family gets $11,000 worth of benefits every year to put towards childcare.
So childcare is that like expensive? for every single
Yeah,
one of those
it
children.
is very expensive, not to mention 90% of children who are on these programs are also on other programs as well. So for automation, how many people does this actually impact?
36 million people, basically all Americans who need to transfer from, say, like a truck
All
driving job.
Americans?
Well, there's 3.5 million truck drivers right now, and basically all of them in the coming decades will need to transfer to a different job. May I have a question?
Yep.
So your last point about immigrant children, why can't children receive UBI?
Okay, so essentially what we're saying is that in the current welfare system, the immigrant children, because they are born in the United States, they qualify as American citizens and hence they can receive welfare. But they do need to go, or the welfare check does need to go through someone who is ages 18 or over, their parent or guardian, in order for them to receive it. With UBI, the person who qualifies would have to be an American citizen, ages 18 or over, and because their parent maybe like they're either on a visa or on a green card, they would not be able to.
So it couldn't go to the parent for the child.
No,
Why?
because UBI goes to American citizens ages 18 and up.
All right. And after that crossfire, which side do you guys think kind of won that? If you guys have any opinions. Yeah, go ahead. See your hand.
I sort of feel like the negation had a bit more like support compared to the
Mhm.
affirmation,
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
because like the negation, I feel like she was a bit more confident with her questions compared to the pro side, and I feel like she asked a few more questions that showed the logic in the pro side's speech.
Yes, she was digging into some holes, right? And she was answering questions really well. And I feel like the affirmative side is kind of digging in holes that don't exist. So he kind of says, what was that last thing they talked about? I forgot. I was just gonna say talk about it. What did they talk about? Oh yeah, they said, why can't immigrant childs get like UBI or whatever? It's a fact, like it's what is gonna happen. And he kind of tries to dig at it, but she does a really good job of saying, oh, well, because UBI is for citizens 18 or above, and immigrant children have parents that aren't citizens. So they basically can't get the benefits, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Oddly enough, I thought the affirmation said that like US citizens who are like children below 18, they can get $250 worth of UBI. Like
I'm not sure. You might be right. At the very start of his speech, right?
yeah.
I'm not sure. I didn't really catch what was after 2,500 because it's trying to point out the framework thing. But yeah, you might be right. And maybe he just forgot to mention it, but in this crossfire, it definitely seemed like the negative was taking more control over the debate. So let's see what happens. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys caught that. That was a bit quiet, but he said, "Oh, we'll take 1 minute prep or something," so that their partner can take some time and prepare. So as you can see, like during prep time, you can talk to your partner. You can kind of discuss like, oh, what you did wrong, or like focus on the next speech. Like, how do I attack their argument, or like take notes and see like, okay, which place should I go to, or like, how do I, embarrass them or whatever. So let's see. I'm gonna jump to where he starts talking. Let's see, where is it? Okay. So the negative second speaker is
My
talking.
opponent's ready. All my judges. All right, with that being said, let us begin. Judges, the definition that we provide at the top of the case says that every adult over the age of 18 will receive $1,000 a month. This is going to be very important in today's debate. This is the most proposed system. Weidinger 19, Yang 2020 is the one who founded this argument talking about $1,000 a month. It's the most proposed system, so let's go with it unless they can provide a better reason not to. Now let's talk about you.
Yep, he just did what I was saying about the framework, kind of. It's basically not an argument necessarily, but it's a fact, and not necessarily a fact. It's a presumed fact that he's trying to hit at. So he's saying, the most common plan is $1,000 a month That's it. No 2,500 or whatever. So he's saying that that's the UBI. And unless my opponents can provide a better reasoning as to why um their program has to have like 2,500, then then our point is right. So he's basically trying to hit at that and try to, you know, tell the judges what is actually true. So, all right, let's keep going.
UBI as a whole. UBI is way too expensive. Weidiger 19 finds that replacing means tested welfare with UBI would add an additional $2 trillion to the budget every single year. Couple options we have to pay for this. The first one is with inflation, but Duncan 12 finds that that'd be 4 times the amount the United States spent after the Great Recession when we were printing excessively. We cannot do this. The next
Okay. Basically, does anyone yeah, go ahead, Sasha.
I can tell that he's saying that UBI is too expensive, but I thought he was the one supporting the UBI.
He's on the negative side. So he's saying that, well, means tested welfare shouldn't be replaced. Yeah. But I actually want to talk about his argument. First, he does a poor job of guiding the judge. I mean, like, if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't know what the hell he was talking about. He was just saying, oh, UBI is expensive, but why does that matter? You know, like, he doesn't talk about how what he's saying interacts with what they have been saying. So what he could have done is, all right, my opponents talk about how they will replace means tested welfare with UBI, but that is fundamentally not good because the UBI is too expensive and we will have to pay for it in 4 different ways. So in that sense, the judge can kind of see, okay, well, they're talking about this and they're wrong because you're saying this, you know? And what he's trying to say is that, right, UBI is too expensive, right? And this kind of response is not that specific to what they're saying, right? What they've been saying is like, I don't know, what was it? Oh, welfare is bad, or like UBI helps solve automation or whatever. He is just trying to give what is called an overarching response. So it doesn't have to be that specific to what they're talking about. It just kind of has to go against their whole agenda. This is basically what an overarching response is called. So
next option is debt, but the Heritage Foundation 19 Committee for Responsible Federal Budget 18 both agree $2 trillion added to the debt even once would cripple the economy. We'd be doing this every single year. It's not feasible. Another option is cutting spending. Abadeo 19 finds that we could cut the entire military budget, still not have enough money. It's not feasible. Last option is taxes. This is very important, judges. Roosevelt Institute 17 finds that in order to finance UBI, taxes would not increase on those in the bottom 40%, but they would increase on the rest of 60% of Americans. In fact, those in the middle 20% would pay $7,000 more in taxes, meaning their net benefit from UBI is now only $5,000. For the next 20%, they actually pay into UBI and lose $188 annually. For those in the top 20%, they lose $37,000 annually. In summary, judges, write this down. 40% of...
Did you guys catch that? That was a really cool move. He said, in summary, judge, write this down. So he's talking directly to the judges and he's saying, this is important. What I'm about to say is super important. Write it down. So that was let's say the judges were falling asleep and he would just say, judges, write this down. The judges would kind of wake up and be like, okay, I kind of have to pay attention to what you're saying. So what he did there was a classic move to, just catch the judge's attention and make them pay attention to what he's saying.
Of Americans lose money under UBI, an additional 20% only get 5,000 of the 12,000 Pro wants you to believe everyone will get. UBI is a hoax. But judges, this is very important because when you look at the information from the Congressional Budget Office 18, NPR 17, and KFF 19, we see that an estimated 2.7 million people on Medicaid for disability reasons, our first point, are also in the top 40% of the income bracket, meaning that 2.7 million people now have to pay into UBI, lose their $17,000 in benefits, lose their health care that they cannot get in the pro world. If we're talking about helping the most vulnerable in today's debate, those are the most vulnerable. Now let's get into the arguments. They first want to...
All right, there's 2 points I want to make. The first one is he kind of goes over the overarching response. And then he says, now let's go over to their arguments, right? So he kind of guides the judges to where we're looking at, right? He says, UBI is too expensive. And then on top of that, I will go ahead and refute to every single argument that he's making, you know? So that was a really strong move. And he also relates his response to his own case, or I say case, it's basically referring to the constructive speech is what it's called. So he says, okay, well, the UBI is too expensive. You can pay for that in a lot of different ways. You can pay through debt, taxes, military budget, or whatever. But in summary, people in a world where there is a UBI actually lose money, you know? And he says, well, people lose money, right? And in our case, we talk about how people need that those programs offered by means tested welfare to survive and to treat their illnesses. So they have to treat their illnesses with money out of their pockets, and they are still losing money because of the UBI. So like worse, like fire on top of fire, you know, just he's telling the judges, you know, their world, they will be having disabled people pay for their treatment, and they also have to pay for the UBI. So very, very bad, right? As it sounds. Did I see a hand somewhere? No? Okay, let's keep going.
Want to talk about all these bad things. Specifically, they talk about 4.8 million people are left out of Medicaid. Judge, this is talking about Medicaid expansion. This is a states' rights issue. This is not a Medicaid issue. In fact, what it actually shows is that Medicaid is good and benefiting people when they actually do expand the program. It's not resolutional. We're talking about states' rights issue. The next one, they talk about 3 and 4 people who qualify for House Choice Voucher Program don't actually get it. Yes, judges, this is talking about people who qualify, not for people who need it. There are many people who qualify for houses but already have a house, are already having situations that don't need them to get another house, so it doesn't apply. When they're talking about the welfare trap, well, judges, there is no welfare trap. The United States Census Bureau 18 finds that 20 million people are kept out of poverty because of welfare. They're kept out of poverty. In fact, they also find that 10 million people are lifted out of poverty because of means-tested welfare. There's no poverty trap according to the numbers from the United States Census Bureau. Now let's talk about their second point where they talk about all these.
All right, that was their first point. So the first contention, he goes over the 3 main parts of his argument, and then he breaks them down one by one and says, that's wrong because of this, that's wrong because of this, that's wrong because of this, right? So he makes it very clear to the judges why their opponents are wrong. So does a good job there.
Benefits. The first, they talk about financial security. But judges, all this financial security thing and not having enough money, it's simply mismanagement of money. They talked about this large number of people who are not having enough money. Well, clearly they do because they're in a high enough income bracket. They're just simply mismanaging the money. And when they talk about all of these trials, as it was pointed out in the last crossfire, all these trials had welfare. Therefore, you cannot correlate any of the UBI impacts specifically to the impact they gave you in case. It's correlation, not causation.
Okay, that's a very common term used in debate, correlation, not causation. So he's saying that, you know, on the surface, it might seem like something is causing something, but it's just that they're correlating. It's like they're linking, they're kind of related to each other, but it's not like the first thing causes the second thing, okay? So that was like a common phrase that you can use to, you know, kind of refute to their argument.
On their subpoint B, when they talk about automation, there's a couple problems with this. The first is Dulio 19, CNBC 18, Jaha 19, Row 19, all finds that AI automation will actually create more jobs than it will destroy. Reese 19 gives you a number to swallow. He says millions more jobs will be created than they destroy. They'll come back to this and talk about that it's the transitional period, but how many jobs actually need to be transitioned? Because you're looking.
All right, and for the automation job, remember what I said? I said automation will replace jobs, right? That's what the affirmative side is saying. They're saying automation is going to replace jobs. The people who don't have jobs anymore will have that UBI to get new jobs. But what he's saying is, well, actually, the automation will create new jobs. So there wouldn't even be any problems for the UBI to solve, you know? So kind of trying to negate that.
Looking at what the past has shown, please vote con.
All right, and that was the first rebuttal.
All right, are my opponents ready? Yeah. My partner ready? My judges ready? All right, then I'll begin. Judges, moving on to their first point where they talk about disabilities. First, the most important thing you have to realize is supplemental security income is not a means-tested welfare program and would not be cut when you implement a universal basic income. This is hugely important because it means these people aren't losing these benefits they rely on.
Okay, so they were talking about SSIs, right? They were saying the program SSI gives this many people money or whatever benefits. And he's saying that when the UBI comes in, the UBI will replace it. So the people who were getting benefits from it will lose those benefits. What he's trying to say is, well, SSIs aren't kind of counted as means tested welfare. They're not means tested welfare. So when the UBI comes in and replaces means tested welfare, they're not replacing SSIs. So in their world, SSIs still exist, right? So he's trying to tell the judges, that's not true and won't be replaced.
But second, what you have to realize is they also still get Medicare benefits on top of the Medicaid benefits. This means when you cut Medicaid, which is the means tested program, the people with disabilities still have access to medical coverage through Medicare, and they can pay the expenses using the UBI they're getting. But third and most important, you have to realize my opponent just told you in his rebuttal speech that millions of these people who receive disability are in the top 40% of income brackets. Why is that important? It means they're not in significant need. It means they have enough money to live off of because clearly they're in the top 40%. Moving on to their second point where they talk about early childhood. First, what you have to realize is children will still be receiving benefits from universal basic income because every single universal basic income policy or trial done in the United States has included children. My opponents are going to try and tell you that it's only going to adults, but this simply isn't true. You look to Alaska, which has had a universal basic income statewide for decades now, they give it to children. You look to the Cherokee Nation, who ran a trial where they found huge benefits from it, they gave it to the children. Every time the UBI has been tried in the United States, it's been given to children. There's no reason to expect we wouldn't do the same thing now.
All right. And, they keep arguing about this thing, like what is the UBI and how much money is it providing and how many people are actually getting the UBI? So negative side is saying, no way, kids are not getting it. And this side is saying, well, actually, in most of the trials held in the States, kids are going to get it. So they're going to keep arguing about that for the debate. And one thing to note is that you only have 4 minutes in a rebuttal. And he kind of spent at least 20 to 30 seconds talking about the definition of UBI, not responding to their opponent's case. So that, when you're talking up there, you kind of have to look at your timer and you kind of have to manage your time and make sure that you have time to respond to all of their arguments.
But second, children are actually harmed more by means-tested welfare. This is what we show you in our poverty trap argument, where we tell you that children are at risk because current means-tested welfare programs discourage marriage, and this is empirically shown. In fact, 82% of lower middle-class families with young children face marriage penalties, which puts them at a greater risk of falling back into poverty. But third, what you have to realize is Bauer of 2018 and Putzer in 2015 show that these people who face these traps, these loss of benefits, are significantly less likely to try and get out of poverty and will actually lower their hours worked, as well as lower or even lose their jobs just to keep these benefits because if they lose those benefits, they're unable to pay for them. But moving on to their third point where they talk about immigrant children, like I said before, these children, because they are U.S. citizens, would still have access to universal basic income because a universal basic income does go to children, and this will make up the benefits that are going to be lost. But moving back on to what my opponent said in response to our case. First,
you just catch what he said. He said, okay, I'm done with their case. I'm going to go over their responses to our case and why they're wrong. So this is called frontlining. I don't know why it's called that, but it's called frontlining. It's basically saying, okay, person A said this. Person B says person A is wrong. And person A goes back and says, well, actually, I'm right because person B is wrong. So that's called frontlining. So keeping track of the vocab. Yes, Shasha.
Will the judges count, like, is this technically taking advantage because they get to hear what like their responses instead of doing it at the summary? Will the judges consider
That's
like if they're taking advantage of it or something?
it's a very, very good point. Very, very good point, actually, that you caught that. No, it's not a violation. Okay, so at the start of a debate, you do a coin flip. So let's say you say heads and the other person says tails. So let's say heads won. The team that said heads gets to decide their side. So they say, okay, we want to do negative, right? Then the other team that lost the coin flip gets to decide the order that they go into. So they would say, okay, we want to go second. So because the first team won the side, the team that lost gets to decide, okay, they have to go first because they lost or because they got to decide their side. So it's not a violation, so to speak. And yeah, it's not a violation. And yeah, it's not a violation is basically the short answer. So
at the top of their rebuttal, they tell you it's going to be too expensive, and then they give you this Roosevelt Institute evidence where it says that people are going to be taxed at a greater rate. But what he doesn't tell you from the Roosevelt Institute is that the Roosevelt Institute shows you can tax people at a greater rate, but still grow the economy. In fact, when you implement a universal basic income based off of their own source, the economy grows by an additional 2% each year. So it's not even an issue. They're talking about nonsense here.
okay, that was a really interesting thing that he said, right? He says, okay, their source says this, but actually, if you read deeper into that evidence that the source provides, they tell you otherwise because the source says that you will be taxing them at a higher rate, but you will be growing the economy even more by taxing them at a higher rate. So what he's saying is, okay, it might be true that we have to have higher taxes with a UBI, but the higher taxes actually grows the economy, and their sources say that. So he's, in a debate, you kind of get excited when you hear a source that you know that they're using because that source might have double meanings. So that was really well done by him. All right, bye bye. Oh, she already left. Okay.
But second, when they're talking about how welfare is, when we're talking about how welfare is bad, they say, first of all, that it's a states' right issue, but they're completely ignoring the fact that this is about how the entire system has major glaring flaws. You just look at the fact that 20 plus million Americans don't receive benefits they qualify for. That's a huge harm because many of those people need those benefits. Under a universal basic income, they will be receiving benefits. There will be nobody left out. And then moving on to our second point, they completely drop our subpoint C where we tell you that.
All right, that was a vocab he used. He said dropped. So he basically said, okay, they finished the rebuttal, but they didn't respond to this argument that we made in our case. So he says, okay, they dropped our blah, blah, blah point. So kind of tells the judges, we have something that they didn't rebuttal to. So you might want to keep an eye on that, so drop.
Guaranteed 10 million Americans are lifted out of poverty, no questions asked. And as long as one adult in the household can work a full-time minimum wage job, 33 million Americans will be lifted out of poverty. That's why we urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
All right, that was the second rebuttal. But now comes the crossfire.
Yes.
All right, all my judges. All right. Since you spoke first, can we have the first question?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about what we just talked about in response to our first point. You said that they can still rely on Medicare, correct?
Correct.
Medicare is only for those who are in the elderly 65 and older, correct?
No.
No,
People on disabilities receive access to Medicare.
they do.
That is my understanding.
How much
yes.
do they receive on Medicare?
They receive the Medicare policy as in, Medicare, the governmental
Okay, so,
healthcare
okay,
system.
let's take that for
right.
what you said.
I don't know if you guys are catching this kind of tension between these two, but this person is kind of making this crossfire like a very like a tension thing, and I mean, you could do that, but honestly, the best policy is just to, answer their question and move on. but he kind of says, really? Oh, I feel like you're wrong, but really? Like he says something, he does something like that. And he kind of undermines his opponent. And, it's not really respectful. And judges don't really like that. So don't do that thing. Don't undermine your opponents. Yeah, he definitely looks mad about how the person shot back. So don't do that. Don't let your emotions come in. Just respond to the question and move on.
Say so they do receive it on Medicare.
Correct.
Is it still not true that they're still also losing the $17,000 in benefits that they only receive on Medicaid?
No, because that's about spending, not how much they receive in benefits.
No, that's
what you
that's
have to
7,000.
see.
That's 17,000 received per recipient. It's
May I
not spending.
finish?
Sure.
All right.
So-
It's a very common thing to say in a crossfire. Can I finish? It makes, it tells the judge, they're kind of cutting me off. I haven't even finished and they just want to chase back to an answer. So can I finish? It kind of, calms the atmosphere down and, are they allowed to interrupt people? Yes, but you shouldn't do that because it looks bad. So just wait for them to finish, or when they're almost finished, you can start.
So what you have to see is that when you look at something like Medicare, there are set limits on how much they can pay out of pocket. Those set limits would be less than a universal basic income.
Okay, but they're still in the $17,000, correct?
No, because
How?
they still have access to medical coverage through Medicare, which means they still have a health insurance, which means they're still getting these health
Then
care
why do they
benefits.
have this Medicaid in the first place if they are?
Because
don't
many of
already-
them are low income, so they qualify for both. However, UBI replaces the need for that.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Right, so why can't UBI go to kids?
Why can't UBI goes to kid? It can if you want to play this definition debate, but what we're seeing is the most proposed definition.
Okay, he makes a good point. He says, if you want to play this definition game, right? Like, sure, like we can keep arguing about why this UBI or like what this UBI is defined as. We can keep arguing about that, but
Is $1,000 a month for every over.
he says, our definition is right, which isn't really like a response to what you kind of just said because you keep on arguing about the definition, but we'll see.
18. So that's what we're going to go to. So now, can we talk about this growing economy thing?
Yeah.
You say we can grow the economy by 2% each year. So is growing the economy by 2% each year going to help the 11 million people who lose their health care, the 2.5 million people who lose their child care, or the 5.5 million children who lose all their benefits? Is growing the economy going to help them?
That was an interesting question. He did use a lot of statistics, so it makes him seem a little bit stronger to the judges, right? Let's see how this person responds.
Yes, and UBI will too.
Okay, how?
Because when the economy grows, that's good for the United States as a whole.
So so it's going to be for the United States as a whole. Is it going to give that child childcare? Is it going to give that person with disability their health?
Not
healthcare
necessarily,
back?
but a universal basic income would,
How?
because it provides them means to buy those things.
Okay, isn't 17,000 more than 12,000?
Once again, that's not relevant to what we're talking about when you're talking about how do you
Okay,
get
so let's go
access
to
this medical
childcare then.
coverage.
So let's go to childcare. $11,000.
See, I don't know, like he just seems frustrating. I get frustrated seeing people like this, but he's getting frustrated and he's saying, okay, fine, you're right, then let's go to the next one, right? Okay, then you're like, he's kind of like rolling his eyes, he's not really paying attention, he's being really disrespectful. That's not something that you should do in front of your judges. It makes you seem weak. It makes you seem, yeah, just not good. Not good.
A cost for childcare, and 90% of them are Medicaid chips, so that's more than $12,000. So how does UBI
Right, you're
cover
playing a
that?
numbers game here, but you're
Mhm.
not giving me a specific. What does the average person receive?
The
from
average
it?
person on Head Start and childcare receives $11,000.
And what do those benefits make up for? What do they use that
So it's
money
free
on?
childcare. Head Start is free childcare.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so when we're talking about this idea of supplemental security income, is that a means-tested program?
Supplemental security income is a means tested welfare, yes,
Why?
because it's by definition a means tested welfare program. Unless you can provide me a source that says it's not.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, that was the kind of, I mean, you can kind of tell that he was running out of questions to ask. So he was like, okay, then SSI why is that a welfare system, right? Like he doesn't say like, oh, we talk about this, like, why is that true or whatever. That was a kind of a useless question because he just says, oh, it's a fact. And he's like, okay, fine. So it's not well done by what affirmative guy was talking about.
How do you lift people out of poverty? Because you say with the working, if they work, when only 19% of people actually work according to in poverty.
Well,
according to the Bureau of
so
Labor
what you
Statistics
see is that in our own case, we're not telling you every single person has to work. We're saying,
saying
one adult
but
in the
only
household.
19% of adults work.
Right, one adult in the household has to work.
Okay, but that's not 19%. That would be 50%.
That didn't really make sense. I feel like he didn't really make sense there. He kind of just said 19.6% of the entire workforce in the United States, only one person in the family has to work. And he says, yeah, one parent only has to work. And then he says that's 50%, which is kind of mixing those two up. So we'll see the summary speeches. But after that, I mean, it is an office debate. So it's not like they're the most experienced people. But yeah, it is kind of confusing. But yeah, like, what do you guys think? Which side do you think is winning right now? Any opinions? You guys want to type in the chat? Just A or N for F and neg. Which side do you think is winning? F, okay. F, I see a lot of Fs. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna skip to where she starts talking.
Are my judges ready? Cool. Then I will begin. So to start off, the main point that you're going to want to vote on in this round is going to be increasing the quality of life for those who need it the most. With this said,
right, he says the most important part about this debate is trying to increase the quality of life of the people who need it the most. So she says, okay, you could make the economy go well. You can do whatever you want, but what we should be focusing on is something that is very important, which is to help the people that are disabled or in need increase or improve their quality of life. So that is very advantageous for her side because she talks about disabled people and she talks about children, right? So her framework kind of helps with those two different sides.
let's consider which side will bring the greater benefit to the greatest amount of people. On the pro side, we're looking at destroying the life-saving programs that support millions of people in order to start a system that is not going to work. On the con side, we have shown that means-tested welfare programs support millions of individuals, families, and children that will have a decreased quality of life if these programs were to be removed.
Okay, she compares the two sides, and there's actually one good thing and one bad thing that comes with this. So as Shasha said, in a debate, what is the difference between a summary and a final focus? Well, she does a good job of kind of summarizing and, breaking down the debate into two important pieces. She said, okay, the pro is saying this, and we, the con side, the negative side, is saying this. But one thing she doesn't do good at is she is kind of undermining her opponent's argument. And you might be saying, oh, well, that's kind of what you're supposed to do, right, in a debate. Well, yes, but in this case, when you're comparing, you're saying the best possible thing that can happen from their world and the best possible thing that you guys can offer. And when you compare the best out of the both two worlds and why your argument is still better, that makes you seem a lot stronger than just saying, oh, well, they have a system that doesn't work and our system does this. It kind of, it feels like you're not listening to what they're saying because of course they're a little bit true, right? So you have to compare the best out of each side in order to make your argument seem stronger.
Our opponents tried to argue that UBI will go to children, but Yang and Weiniger are two of our many sources that state that a universal basic income will only go to U.S. citizens ages 18 and over. This is the most proposed upon and agreed upon system, which does not include children. Not to mention a UBI would not be possible to fund without tremendous harms to both the economy and to the people. The only option to fund a UBI is taxes. However, they would only supply a very small amount of people with the full $12,000. Many people would be left paying into UBI rather than benefiting from it. In this sense, it kind of makes UBI a means-tested welfare program, since only those in poverty are the ones benefiting from it. But they aren't getting the finances that they were before, and they aren't covering the extent of people that...
What she said was kind of confusing. The UBI is means-tested welfare. I feel like I feel like that kind of confused. I mean, I was a little bit confused. I might not be listening to what, like I might not catch everything she's saying, but I feel like what she was saying was a little bit confusing though. Like, why would you compare UBI with means tested welfare like that? And one thing to add is that she's looking at her computer constantly. She's not making eye contact with her judges, which is not good. So keep in mind, eye contact is very important.
That it needs to. Our opponents stated that supplemental security income was not a means-tested welfare system. However, they're thinking of social security income. Supplemental security income is the program that allows people who have a disability to receive the benefits from multiple programs. They're two different things. Next, their 88% statistic is completely wrong, seeing as they stated that if one adult in the household can work a full-time minimum wage job, they'll be lifted. However, the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2016 tells us that only 19% of those people in poverty were actually working. This is drastically lower than the 90% statistics that our opponents provided without a source, as they stated in the first crossfire. So let's look on to the pro side, starting with our opponent's first point, talking about why welfare is broken. This isn't the case. For starters, they stated that 4.4 million people are left out of Medicaid. They're talking about Medicaid expansion, which is a state issue. And as for housing, many of the people on the program already have housing, which is why they aren't receiving the benefits. As for the marriage penalty, this point couldn't be further from the truth. All of the benefits that go to the children from having married parents are the same whether or not they have a marriage license in their house. Moving on to Pro's second point as to why UBI would allegedly solve, they started by talking about the trials of when UBI has worked, but all of them had welfare in place, which is why they were so successful. Our opponents also stated in Crossfire that all truck drivers were going to lose their jobs, but this is unreasonable. Although automation is happening, it's not happening on this massive scale that Pro is trying to say that they are. So let's look on to the con side, starting with our first point, which is disabilities. Millions of individuals rely on Medicaid to pay for their costly but necessary treatments and therapies that come along with living with a disability. In fact, the average welfare recipient with a disability gets around $17,000 worth of benefits from Medicaid, which is significantly higher than the $12,000 offered with UBI, and the majority of private health insurance providers will not cover these disabilities. So next, our second point, which is childcare. Not only do childcare programs provide an average of $11,000 in annual benefits, but with UBI, we're looking at having very little money left over to cover for everything else, and seeing as 90% of children on childcare programs are additionally on other programs, it's not going to cover for everything. Finally, immigrant citizen children, which is our third point. 80% of these families rely on these welfare programs, which is why we urge a con ballot.
All right. And yeah, so she basically, in a summary, she was like, okay, they're wrong and we're right. And I'm going to repeat all of my arguments to you again to remind you why we're right and remind you why you should vote for us. So she kind of rebutted to her opponent's arguments, and also she reinforced her own arguments and talked about why their rebuttal to their arguments is wrong. So I think that's a good place to end for now, since I do have to go somewhere at 6. So we're going to end here. We'll finish up the whole debate example tomorrow. And we will also look at more specifics into how to write a case, or how to write a constructive speech, and how to attack or how to make a rebuttal. So yeah, look forward to that tomorrow. But for now, you guys are free to leave. So yeah.